Welcome back to Reddit R Us. What's the dumbest thing you've done because you were feeling aroused? Story 1. I almost tugged my cucumber while driving down the highway once, but then I thought if they found my corpse in the wreck with my hand around my private, my family would be really disappointed. So my brain won that battle. You know what they say, speed kills. Luckily, OP was using the right head that day. Story 2. Around 8 years back, I lived in northern Mozambique, a coastal southern African country with quite a warm climate. My mother at the time was going through a health nut phase and only buying foods she deemed healthy enough. One of these was coconuts. She would buy several coconuts a week to use in food from the local market. Anyway, being a naughty teen, I played solo in regular intervals. Unfortunately, there were some severely stressful examinations coming up for me, and as such, my stress relief activity reached a higher peak than usual, and I was feeling pretty romantically frustrated. One day I hear that my mother is going to be out for pretty much the entire afternoon. Naughty me decides that it would be a fantastic idea to stick myself in a coconut. Honestly, to this day, I can't fathom why I thought that would be a good idea, but my train of thought back then was clearly somewhat clogged. I ended up grabbing the coconut drill and through 20-ish minutes of concerted effort, ended up creating a hole large enough for me to stick my porker into. I decided it required some lube and grabbed the nearest slippery thing, some butter, before shoving it into the coconut, followed shortly by myself. I violate the coconut and it actually feels pretty good, so I release, shove the coconut under my bed, and continue about my day. For the next week, the coconut is my savior. Whenever I want to get off, I simply take it out and go in its delightfully tight hole, made better each time by accumulating volumes of my milk and butter acting as a lubricant. It's heaven. Now before I continue, I'd best mention that at the time, our area was experiencing quite humid, muggy weather, which exacerbated an already existing fly problem. Disgustingly fat, bloated flies were commonly found around our house, and the exterminators couldn't really do anything because it was a localized area problem. About a week and a bit after the initial coconut fun time, I had been using it pretty much every day since then. I begin to notice a few more flies than usual, as well as an odd, unpleasant smell about my room. Must be the coconut, right? So I decide that I'll have fun once more before I throw it out and get a new one. Worst mistake I have ever made. You see, the reason for the increased number of flies was that the coconut was evidently, in hindsight, a nearly perfect place to lay eggs. As I go inside the coconut one last time, I begin to feel a strange wriggling sensation. Puzzled, I pull my cucumber out to discover that it is covered in rotted and moldy butter and bodily fluids, and teeming with tiny freaking maggots. They were wriggling all over my private head, and some were even trying to force their way up into my hole. I screamed and threw the coconut against the wall, which made the situation worse by spilling the contents. Hours of vigorous nether region scrubbing, vomiting, and cleaning the remnants were spent reflecting on what the heck I was doing with my life. Never again. Never again. This has got to be hands down the dumbest thing someone has done while being aroused. And we haven't even finished reading the rest of the stories yet. OP really had to bust one final nut, even though the warning signs were there, and he sure paid the price for that. Story 3. I was helping my dad close up the sailboat for the winter. We took the seat cushions out and the long ones had to go in the car between us, kind of stacked up like a wall, so we could only see each other's heads. Teenage hormones kicked in on the hour ride home, and I proceeded to rub one out while looking out the window. Many moons later, I told my brother, who then proceeded to tell my dad. I always wondered why you were so quiet on that trip. So when OP was done, did he just sit there with soiled pants the whole time or what? That must have been so uncomfortable. Story 4. Paid $1,200 for a private room at Hustler in Vegas. Threw the strippers a wild card and said, "Y'all sit down while I strip for you." What the heck was I thinking? Bro was trying to make that $1,200 back. Story 5. Several years back, a woman I had been flirting with called me in the middle of the night one time because she wasn't feeling well and asked if I could pick up some medicine and bring it to her place. Went to her place not expecting much other than maybe earning some brownie points for dropping off the meds. Anyway, she invites me in and asks if I could spend the night with her. That, of course, gets me all titillated. However, by the time we get into bed, she's all tired and drowsy despite her best attempt at acting seductive. Next thing I know, I'm lying in bed next to her, with my arm pinned under her body while she's snoring away and farting. I end up lying like that for the rest of the night. Got maybe 30 minutes of sleep that entire night. And of course, I then had to get up to work a whole shift in the morning. At least I did earn some brownie points for that because we ended up dating for not quite a year afterwards. I like how OP just added in that the girl was just farting in her sleep. And he really left his arm under her body the whole night. It had to be numb as by the morning. Story 6. Twiddled my diddle in the principal's office to his daughter's picture. OP was really trying to get expelled that day. Story 7. I once walked 3 miles at 2 a.m. during a snowstorm and -3-degree temperatures when my girlfriend called and said that her parents were gone for the weekend. The things a naughty 16-year-old kid will do to get some. As long as OP was layered up, I don't see a problem with this. Story 8. Put my D in crazy. Mate, I did this the other week. I like a bit of excitement in my life, so I tend to gravitate toward the more freaky kind of girls. It's always been like this since I was a teen. I think I probably have some issues too, but this time was so effed, I swore I'd never go for crazy again. The lovemaking was amazing, but I think that's why I got myself into this problem. I've learned now. Over the course of 6 hours, she told a homeless man to go off himself, screamed out of my car window saying she was kidnapped and to call 000. Tried to jump out of my car as I was going 80 kilometers an hour on a freeway, driving her back to where she lived, and damaged my car by opening the door again whilst I was moving. Eventually, her mom came over to my place. I dropped her at her mom's house where she was living. The girl had a mark on her neck because when she tried to jump out of the car, I must have grabbed her by the necklace. This definitely saved her life, by the way. Like I said, I was doing 80 on a highway. She told her mom I abused her, and her mom started throwing punches at me at my doorstep. The girl then comes running down the driveway with her phone out screaming, "I have you on camera assaulting my mother." The mother was a lot smaller than me, so all I did was block her swings, and I probably grabbed her wrists out in front of her at some point to stop her attacking me. Again, this all happened at my front door, so at no point have I been worried about what happens to that footage. Who would attack someone at their own front door? Anyway, I was a bit of a wreck after that night. I couldn't believe it. I've dealt with some crazy and mentally challenged people in my life, but this was a whole new level. This felt like pure evil. I'm still not over it, and it's probably been about a month. So yeah, crazy is absolutely not worth it. Edit, she just went on trial for stabbing a man 12 times and harassing him with a bleach-covered broom handle. This all happened before we met. I think I dodged a bullet here. Holy cow. Pro tip, do not stick your D in crazy. If you guys aren't familiar with the crazy hot matrix, I suggest you look it up so that you can have a happy dating life. Story 9. Decided to pleasure myself into a urinal because I was bored and aroused studying for finals when I was in college. I studied in an empty classroom in the creepiest old building on campus so that I could be completely focused and not be distracted. I hadn't seen anybody in that building for 3 hours, so I didn't feel the need to lock the bathroom door or do my business in a stall like a normal person. So I'm just going to town on myself, and suddenly the bathroom door opens and I stop mid-whack. I just stood there holding my private for a second, put it back in, and leave without making eye contact. Still have no idea who that person was, but they definitely knew what I was doing and that I'm freaking weird. I think it was Jesus telling you to stop sinning. Story 10. Girl offered to whack me off if I let her copy my answers off of one of our finals. I thought it was going to be sometime after, but nope. It was right there during a lecture. Being a typical young guy, of course, I wasn't gonna reject that offer. Still surprised to this day we weren't caught. That must be a really large classroom with a few students if they weren't caught. Either that or people did catch them, but they just didn't do anything because it's awkward as heck. Story 11. Drove 4 hours to the beach to camp with a cuddle buddy of mine. He stood me up and ghosted me. The icing on the cake was losing my keys in the sand and having to pay $300 for a new set to be cut. Dang, this is why good communication is key. If I'm going camping with someone somewhere 4 hours away, ain't no way I'm driving alone and meeting you there. We're carpooling. Story 12. When I was a kid, my dad would frequently take me to his job and give me meaningless tasks to help him out. He was a property manager for a secure government building, federal guards at the doors, etc. Anyways, he had his office in the basement and was left alone down there by everyone else in the building. He would smoke cigarettes down there, blast music, etc. When I was 13, I went with him to work one day and he gave me the job of using an electric sander to take grime off of copper pipes in one of the machine rooms. I was left alone to my task for hours, and about an hour in, I realized how incredibly powerful the vibration was on the sander. One thing led to another, and I ended up grinding the handle of the sander on my privates. After I finished, I remember even at 13 saying to myself, "You're really weird, dude." Never told anyone till now. Story 13. I had it so bad for this Chinese girl at university back in 2004, and she would not give me the time of day. I did everything I possibly could. Then in a moment of insane desperation and browsing stuff during the earlier days of the internet, I found some sort of self-proclaimed wizard living in California who specialized in love spells, and I do not. My 20-year-old brain thought it was a good idea to send said wizard $200 to cast the spell. Suffice to say, the spell did not work. To this day, I still can't believe how stupid I was. Male hormones are ridiculous things. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more crazy Reddit stories.